Hello and welcome to Mindshift Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Friday, May 2nd, 2025. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend a couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeannie Rice on the website at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the two words that say Start Here in the upper left-hand corner, it'll take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Rice's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of the book contains a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. And it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 20 years now to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file. Click the link, download it, print it off, copy it as often as you'd like, and use it over and over again absolutely free. You can also download from that page a whole host of audio files of shows just like this one where people have been stepped through the worksheet process. And if you choose to listen to them even repeatedly, they can serve as a powerful tutorial for you to help you get maximum benefit from these tools in the shortest amount of time possible. You can also go to your App Store and type in the three words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. And if you choose to do that before you're done typing the word forgiveness, you'll see the glowing heart icon. If you choose to tap on that, it will let you download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet. It contains an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and it contains a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. And we hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives, and secondarily because it tends to prompt comments, questions, answers, and testimonials. And if you have any of those to share with us, we'd appreciate you doing so by giving us a call through the Needle app or sending me an email. You can email me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org, and or you can email Jeannie at jeanie@whyagain.org. That's whyagain.org. And if we get a question or a comment from you, we'll address it on the internet show, and as time allows, send you a notification about what day and time that occurred so you can listen back to the archives for your feedback or input. And we greatly appreciate whenever anybody chooses to do that, because it makes it so much easier for us to live into our intention with this work. The intention we have with this work is to be of service, and that is just boatloads easier to do when we know how these things are landing for you. So we have plenty of time for comments and questions. The topics this week have included reading from the book A Walk in the Physical by Christian Sundberg, and also some discussions about communication skills the day before yesterday. And the book that I recommend to people in that regard is the hour-long audio by Micah Salaberios titled The Art of Nonviolent Communication. And then yesterday we had some conversation about boundaries and my definition for boundaries and their value and how to become aware of what I'm communicating through my either the match or the mismatch between my behavior and my words. And we have plenty of time for comments. And someone just asked, is anyone else not able to hear, or is it just on my end? So, Melissa, thank you for typing that comment. Please let me know if anybody is able to hear, because I've already had several people show up on the call and then disappear. So if you're able to hear, I would appreciate if you would just type in the app, I can hear you, or I'm having difficulty hearing you, etc., etc., etc. All right, so 2 people have said they can hear, and one says it's loud and clear. Someone else recommends trying earphones. Sometimes phones don't pick up sound. I don't know what that comment means, but I'm glad someone can hear. I was going to try and wait until more people were on the call to make the announcement that as of Monday, I will be switching to Zoom. And all the information you would need to get on the Zoom call, either through your phone or your computer device, will be available at the mindshiftersacademy.org website. There'll be a special page just for the first hour of Mindshifters Radio. And instead of being on Needle, I will be on Zoom. And it'll be recorded, and then it'll still get published to your favorite podcast platforms, as it has been with Blog Talk Radio, and as it has been now for a while with Needle. And so the archives will still be available in the usual format, either through Apple Podcasts or the Google Play Store, or wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify or Amazon, etc. But the actual call in live, starting on Monday, will be through a Zoom call. And one more time, all the information you would need to join us on that Zoom call is available on the mindshiftersacademy.org website. And there will be a separate page. There already is a separate page there dedicated to the first hour of Mindshifters Radio. And hopefully, even if you're on a mobile device, that will come up near the top of the menu. I'm doing it on an iPad right now, and it comes up as the Mindshifters Radio weekdays at 11 a.m. And if you tap on that page, it has all of the information about the Zoom meeting ID and the mobile numbers that you could use to, or the phone numbers that you could use to call in if you don't want to use a computer. And the format will be the same format. It's just that there'll be some video of me talking, and there will be the option for you to have video to respond or to just speak, and I'll have the option to mute people and unmute them, and we'll see how that works for quality of recording and reliability. So, please let me know if you have a comment or a question that you would like us to address prior to me returning to the reading from the book, A Walk in the Physical by Christian Sundberg. And somebody just asked, why did you choose Zoom? I choose Zoom because I've been using it for many years now, even long before the coronavirus restrictions kicked in, and it seemed like everybody and their brother and their sister went to that platform. and it has been the most high quality, consistent, reliable online source that I've used since, it's got to be at least 15 years now. When I first got introduced to it, it was a brand new thing. Hardly anybody had ever heard about it. And then by the time coronavirus restrictions kicked in 2020, it was a pretty well established tool. And then when everybody and their brother and sister and aunt and uncle needed to get online for video calls, it just got overwhelmed. But they have done a lot of work over the years to improve their security and their quality, and it will let us do what we need to do. Have the call-in portion of the show and get a decent recording of the discussion so it can be uploaded to a podcast platform. And, at this level, all we're concerned about is functionality. We're doing this, we're spending our own money to bring these internet shows to you, and we are spending our own money to have them broadcast to a podcast platform. And so the two considerations of the quality and the functionality along with the cost are what resulted in that decision. So again, please feel free to either type a comment or raise a hand to talk voice to voice, or just sit back and listen, and I will read a little bit more with commentary from the book by Christian Sundberg. And again, we're reading the book by Christian Sundberg because it was requested and because Christian has agreed to be on this show August 1st so that we can have a discussion and he can answer questions. And we've already been through most of this book last year or the year before. And so it was a rewarding experience the first time, and then somebody requested that we do it again after we finished reading The Way of Mastery with commentary. So that's where we are. And so we've read different themes of the essays. He's got 166 different essays, and he's grouped them according to theme. And the theme headings are things like love, and love as the healer, and healing through feeling, and the present moment as the point of power. We've read all of those essays. We've read challenge as a gift. There's 12 essays there. We've read negative emotions as guideposts. There are 5 essays there. We've read truth beyond knowledge, and the category answer is not in the intellect. And we've read seeking non-physical answers while in the physical. And we've read the category heading playfulness over seriousness. So without anybody typing in a comment or choosing a different category, I will land on the next little category. Has only 2 essays in it, and it's titled You, parentheses, and we, close parentheses, cannot fail. And the first essay in that grouping is titled We Will Get There. And Christian writes, near-death experiencers often describe that they have sensed everything being in perfect order. And one may ask, well, how can this be given all the apparent destruction and suffering in the world? The phrase, quote, everything being in perfect order, close quotes, does not mean that we are expressing love in the most optimal way yet. We knowingly came into a very difficult, what he calls a constraint set. In parentheses, he says, the physical universe is our constraint set. And then he writes, to refine our ability to make love-based choices rather than fear-based choices, we are challenging ourselves to do that in a more and more difficult environment. And he's used the analogy before of lifting weights in the gym. You start out with a lower weight and you build up and you stretch your capacity, because as you meet resistance and you keep pushing against it, the muscles grow to help you accomplish what you're asking them to accomplish. Christian writes, we have a long way to go. Each of us still often makes choices based out of fear rather than love. And yet, because of the divine law that capital S Source has put in place, we will get there, whether it's quickly or slowly, he puts in parentheses, depending upon our choices, close parentheses. The process is unfolding successfully, yet it's a real system, and real beings are making real free will choices. And that can get apparently messy. The messiness is a price that we are willing to pay to participate in such an amazing endeavor of creative expansion. If you want to put it in religious language, you would say something like, God's plan cannot fail. We all choose every day how readily we will work with it or not, and yet ultimately it cannot fail. The spiritual systems that are in place do, over time, encourage each of us to actually grow up towards love. They encourage us over time to integrate our fears. They encourage us over time to fully express ourselves in a huge variety of conditions. And as we do that, the plan of the Creator is fulfilled. And despite how circumstances may appear on the surface, we're actually doing that right now. So the invitation is to take heart and have hope and be encouraged. There is great opportunity and power in any given moment for us to choose love and compassion, even in the simplest ways. And as you do so, as a part of the capital O-N-E, one, as a part of that one mind yourself, you actually facilitate the successful fulfillment of the great plan for this universe. Whether you realize it or not, you are facilitating the expansion of creation towards love, away from fear. So that's the first of two essays in this heading. We will get there. And the next essay is titled, Goodness Can't Help But Win. And as always, when I read things like this, I'm hoping that people who've been listening over the time recognize that it's very useful to stay tuned into what you experience energetically, emotionally, and in your thought patterns as you hear some of these statements, as you hear some of these proclamations or invitations. And I know a number of people that I've worked with over the years in the support groups and even have called the internet show, they will be having an internal dialogue that argues with some of these more positive statements. And so here's another very positive statement that says, goodness can't help but win. And Christian writes, no matter what happens, life ends up using it for the good. As soon as I read that, my mind goes to an image of all of the times I used to do backpacking out in the mountains in Northern California, and how many times I would see a, a beautiful tree, and then the next time or two I'd go backpacking through that area, the tree would be down. And a year or two later, I would go through that area, and the tree is still down and it's partially rotted. But if I step on it, or I see a place where some other creature has stepped on it and broken it open, it's teeming with life, bursting with life. Grubs and worms and food for the birds and the bears, and it's a part of the cycle of life. It all, even when this beautiful tree is no longer there for me to take shade under or gather its pine cones to start a fire or whatever, it's still serving a function for the cycle of life and creation. So life ends up using whatever happens for the good of life and creation. Christian writes, there is no loss that is not eventually followed by the victory of life. And life becomes more through that loss. No matter the loss, failure, or destruction, there is always some good that comes into being afterward as a result, as a part of the flow. This is the nature of permanent life versus impermanent change. Everything that happens within beingness occurs for beingness's sake. There is no circumstance that can overcome beingness. There is no circumstance that can escape being useful in the evolution of beingness. So while the churning of changing circumstance may seem to burn us, we can never be lost, and we can never truly fail. This means that we do not ever have to surrender to the feeling of defeat. We can choose to interpret whatever happens as part of the expansion of our true nature, the one mind, the flow of creation itself. And it's a very useful thing in my work, in my life, for me to view myself as the extension of the creative energy manifesting in form, temporarily manifesting in form. And with the understanding that this thing that my culture has taught me to fear, with the label of death, is nothing more than a transition and an invitation to the next part of the journey. So that's the only two essays under the category, you cannot truly fail. And I remind people that I recently read from chapter 21 of The Way of Mastery, or lesson 21 in The Way of Mastery, where it gives us 9 statements that are very similar to some of the statements made in the last 2 essays I read here. And The Way of Mastery invites us to use each of those 9 statements as a mind shifter. Instead of writing them at the top of a page and then responding to them for just an hour or two, The Way of Mastery invites us to do that for each of those 9 statements for an entire week. And whenever we're called to, we pull up the piece of paper and we read it, and we let whatever wants to argue against it spill out on the page. The next category of essays I'll read to, unless somebody wants to suggest something else or make a comment, is titled Your True Identity. And the first essay in that grouping is titled, Always Remember You Are Light. And Christian writes, you are a part of the light, capital L light. You are an unspeakably valuable and amazing fragment of that which is, capital letters, that which is. You are spirit, brave and immortal spirit, currently having the experience of a body. You cannot be harmed. You cannot be forgotten. And you cannot be replaced. You are never alone. You are adored. You are held up. You are celebrated by countless thousands upon thousands of those who know and cherish you. You are a spark of the divine flame which shines bright in all things. You are a fire in the illusion of darkness. So again, I just have to encourage people to keep your breath moving and just notice what wants to argue against this or resist this in you. Breathing and softening. What in you is resonating when you hear all of these statements that you are a spark of the divine flame which shines bright in all things, that you are a fire in the illusion of darkness, that you are the presence of capital L love. You are love uniquely expressed as only you can express it. You are a powerful force. You are a mighty consciousness who has set out upon one of the greatest adventures thus far conceived, fully participating, and yet at the same time fully transcendent. Your every thought and intent speaks to the galaxies as they are your brothers and your sisters. You are connected to every single thing that exists. You are so wonderful that you are beyond description. You are a universe unto yourself, and yet an ever-shimmering drop in the unspeakably brilliant ocean of the light. You are loved, and you are love. As you take your walk in the physical, set aside time to listen with your deepest being rather than your mind, and allow the flow. Allow yourself to remember who you are. Now, as I read that, it's flooding into my mind how many times I've mentioned to people that, for my money, the Way of Mastery is a kinder, gentler version of the Course in Miracles. And sometimes people would say to me, what do you mean? Why do you say that? And I would open up the Way of Mastery to the third lesson and read them the following two paragraphs. The first two paragraphs in the Way of Mastery, Lesson 3, that are brought to mind as I read this very short essay titled, Always Remember Your Light. And the Way of Mastery, Lesson 3 reads, if I search the languages of your world, I cannot find the words that can convey the love that I feel for you. I cannot find the words that can convey unto you the love that God has for all of us. I cannot find the words that can convey unto you a concept, a word, an idea, a philosophy, or a dogma that can contain the mystery that is closer to you than your own breath and awaits your discovery. If I search throughout all of creation, if I search through the many mansions that exist within the domain of my Father's creation, and that creation is infinite, try as I might, I cannot discover anything that can truly describe you. I cannot find anything that is of greater value than you. In truth, I cannot discover anything that speaks more eloquently of the love that God is than your very existence. Therefore, in truth, I look upon you constantly, and I marvel at the radiance of my Father's love. It is through you that I come to discover all that God is. And that's the lead-in to the third lesson. And it comes right before the author says, when I was young, I learned that the greatest gift I could ever receive would only come to me if I dismantled every judgment and every perception I would create about you, my brother or sister. So hopefully you're able to hear or see the same kind of parallels that resonated in my mind as I was reading this very short essay titled, Always Remember Your Light. You're never alone. You cannot be replaced. You cannot be harmed. You cannot be forgotten. You're the presence of love, uniquely expressing as only you can express. You are a powerful force, a mighty consciousness who has set out upon one of the greatest adventures thus far conceived in all of the reality. And you are fully participating, and yet at the same time you are fully transcendent of this physical reality. Your every thought and intent speaks to the galaxies, as they are your brothers and sisters. You are connected to every single thing that exists. You are so wonderful that you are beyond description. You are a universe, unique unto yourself, and yet an ever-shimmering drop of the unspeakably brilliant ocean of the capital L light. You are love, L-O-V-E, capital L-O-V-E. So the invitation, once again, is that as you're here taking your walk in the physical, the invitation is for you to set aside time to listen with your deepest being rather than your mind, and allow yourself to remember what you truly are. Susan Bingham, are you available?
I am. So, early in that beautiful passage, it's God speaking to us saying something like, you have no idea the love I feel for you.
That's on the way of mastery.
Yeah. We're taught on this radio show, we've been taught that love isn't a feeling and we don't aim for feeling. We intend to be kind and so forth, but feeling isn't required, yet God has this huge feeling, and lucky God, that feeling is what I want too. I think we all do, and I think we all know we can't achieve that all the time. We're lucky if we really feel strong love for a few people, and yet that's a special relationship set up again, and that is discouraged in the Course in Miracles.
Only because it is so limiting.
Right.
The Course in Miracles, the Way of Mastery, all these other great teachings would encourage you to feel that every moment for everyone and everything. And you can't make that happen, and yet you can actively work with tools to dismantle everything that's less than that. You can do what Yeshua goes on in that lesson 3 of the Way of Mastery to say, you can start to dismantle every judgment you have about your brother or sister or any aspect of life. And as you dismantle it, this feeling you're talking about, this awareness of the connection of all things, this vibrant, he calls it the shimmering radiance of the true nature of things, starts to come through because you remove the judgments, you remove the blockages to your experiencing it. You don't create it, you don't manufacture it, you simply get your bloated nothingness out of the way.
Bloated nothingness, one of my favorite phrases in that book. Well, I know this isn't, what your answer is as good as it can get. Turn your view to the obstacles, and you can do something about those. You cannot do anything about getting that feeling directly. It has to be by removing obstacles.
Well, and the other thing is, you can't get it, it's already there. The point is, you're busy thinking, doing, trying to manufacture, trying to create something that's already there. And in that process of trying to make it happen, you're obstructing your own awareness of it. Which is why here in this last segment of the essay I was just reading from A Walk in the Physical, he says, as you take your walk in the physical, you're invited to set aside time to listen with your deepest being rather than your mind. And as you do, you allow yourself to remember what you are. As you remember what you are, all of the best feelings you could ever imagine will come into your experience, because that's a natural derivative of being aware of your true nature.
Well, I can't argue with that, but I also can't imagine getting there. And I suppose, that's not a very good attitude.
Well, but here's the thing. The more you say, I can't imagine getting there, what you're doing is you're using your imagination to create an image that says you can't get there, rather than just not use your imagination that way.
And just allow that it's possible.
Right. Well, and or just observe what happens as you actively use the tools to remove anything that's negative.
Yeah. That's the line. That's the dividing line.
There's 4 or 5 times in just this past 2 days alone in my therapy sessions where it's been relevant to bring out the bottom line observation, the last one that was added to the list, that says if I have a negative thought about myself or somebody else, or a negative emotion active in my mind, I can instantly know 3 things. The first thing I can know about it is it's a lie or it's based in a falsehood. If it's a perfectly logical conclusion that I can show you the logic for, and it ends up with a negative conclusion, it will always be based on a false premise. So it's either a lie, out and out lie, or it's based on a falsehood. It's based on a false assumption. The second thing I can know about it, if I have a negative thought about myself or somebody else, or a negative emotion active in my mind, is it's not about what's going on in the present moment. The present moment doesn't have that in it until I bring it there. This is an old tape playing in my head that's leading me to a negative judgment about myself or others, or a negative conclusion about my life, or to generate a negative emotion. And the third situation or the third thing I can know instantly is that if I act from that, if I sit and spin thinking about it, or I speak or act from it, I'm just going to make my life situation worse, not better. And it doesn't matter what the negative thought is, or how many times I can rationalize it. It doesn't matter what the current situation is. If it's negative in my emotional state or my thought, it's either an out-and-out lie or it's a logical structure that makes sense, but it's built on a false premise. So, as you have that belief and that imagination going that, oh, I'll never get there, you can know instantly if you feel negative when you think I'll never get there, it's false. And as I said, a number of times, 4 or 5 minimum in the last 2 days, and I think one of them even happened in the support group last night. I think it might have been one of the things that I stopped the Guy Finley video to say, here's what he just said. Any negative experience is false. That's the bottom line observation. It's a deep truth that runs through many different spiritual traditions. So when you end up absolutely convinced that this is bad, this is horrible, this is devastating, this is catastrophic, your mind is making up stuff that's not ultimately true. This is why Guy Finley says we must actively steal from ourselves every excuse to be negative, to be bitter, resentful, angry, hurtful, whether it's to ourselves or anybody else. Because if we do not actively steal from ourselves those excuses, if we don't see the false nature of that extensive logic that leads us to this negative emotion, then we will be able to justify any level of abuse. Any level of abuse. And right now, you're justifying creating negativity within yourself because you can't even imagine getting to the place where you've removed all of the garbage and you can just see your true nature of God. So right now, you're using it to generate excuses to be abusive to yourself. And I could imagine that somebody was here who was less enlightened than I would say, cut it out! But I, from my enlightened position, know, you're free to do that if you want.
Yeah. Well, that's good. You've given us the tools that even people like me who are making this means certain negative things can pick up and use to do something about something that I think I can't do anything about. It's as if I've been facing one tree and there's a tree behind me. I'm invited to turn away from that tree in front of me because it is too bright and too wonderful, and I can't get there by walking toward it or looking at it or even thinking about it, but I can turn to the trees behind me and use removals, remove negative thinking, remove false ideas, remove judgments, remove any idea of past experience as being a prediction of what might be in the future, etc. I'm remembering 2 stories very similar. Tim Bingham and I have been reading conversations by of a Hindu woman saint, and she used to initiate young people, men and women, into the religious life by giving them a mantra. And one young man came to her and said, "The love of my life is a friend of mine, and I can't imagine feeling toward God the way I feel toward this friend. And so is it possible?" And I forget her direct answer, except she said, just put your foot on the path, take this mantra, and begin to practice it. All will be well, don't worry about it. And I remember asking the same question of my teacher of Vedanta years ago, because I think they call it, being, I need Jesus to be in the flesh. I need something in the flesh. My question was similar to that. Like, how can I transfer the love I feel for this friend to God? And is it a blasphemy to love this friend instead of loving God? I mean, if you made me pick right now, I'd pick the friend. And what's so funny, Dr. Jim?
Well, you're using the mind that divides and says your friend is different than God. You're using the mind that's rooted in the dream of separation.
Oh, that's good. That's a good thing. You're answering my question. Thank you, even though you think it's funny.
I think it's funny because it's the truth, right? It's so blatantly obvious that the mind that divides can't see that everything is okay because the mind that divides derives its identity from the division process. I'm over here and I'm worse than you. You're over there up on a pedestal. Or I'm over here up on the pedestal, you're down there in the pit.
Yeah, that's
right?
good.
And
That's good.
and it's a mind that divides that does that. Now, what did we just read? We read that you're connected to all things, that you're infinite and eternal, that you shine forth as a sunbeam to the sun, that you are the effect of the Creator's love, and you're here to extend that love. Well, so if you say, I love this friend more than I love God, all you're talking about is some image in your mind that you're calling God. God is not the images you have about God. God is not your label for God. Remember the story from Pierre Pradervand where Pierre asked this imam, this Muslim priest, he said, what do the Muslims think God is? And Pierre was ready to shoot it down because Pierre thought he had it nailed down from the Christian Science perspective, exactly what the answer is for who and what God is. And the imam said, well, listen, Pierre, if I took all the branches on all the trees and used them as pens from around the world, and I took all the water from all the rivers, lakes, oceans, streams, and creeks and used it as ink, and I wrote for an eternity, I would never exhaust the names for God. What you're doing when you say you love something more than God or you're angry at God is you're caught in the negativity of a mind that doesn't understand that its only existence is built on separation, on the dream of separation. You are not your thoughts about yourself. And wait, and come back to the thing we just talked about, the number 10 bottom line observation. If the thoughts you have about yourself or God or somebody else lead you to negativity, they're false. And they're not about the present moment experience. They're about the past. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, you reminded me of a practice I used to have that I've forgotten about. At one point, I was having a crush on somebody, and it was entirely inappropriate because I was already married. And I decided the only way to handle that crush is to see the face of God in that person and to go right past that face to God. And it was a great comfort to think of that. In a way, you've just said it. It was entering a non-dual way of thinking. It didn't occur to me that this is approaching non-dualism or even had a tiny, tiny part of that. But everything could be used as a conduit to get to God. And nothing short of that would do.
Yeah. It's again, it comes back to the fundamental observation that you can't create love. You can't create an awareness of the unity of all things. You can only use the mind to watch what it's doing to falsely create an image of separation.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see, this is why Krishnamurti would talk so much about when you learn to see the false as the false, when you learn to see the false parading around as the truth, then it all opens up. Then your experience shifts exponentially.
Say that last thing again, Dr. Tim, would you?
When you learn to see the false as the false,
Uh-huh.
when you learn to see the false parading around in your mind as the truth, or in somebody else's mind as the truth, then you open yourself to the direct experience of truth itself, which is always there and never goes anywhere. It's like the story of the devil and a friend walking down the street. This is the story that Krishnamurti used when he opened his talk titled, "The Truth is a Pathless Land." And he says the devil and his friend are walking down the sidewalk, and they see somebody in front of them bend over and pick up something off the sidewalk. And the friend says to the devil, "Hey, devil, what did that guy just pick up?" And the devil says, "That person just picked up a piece of the truth." And the friend was aghast and said, "Oh my gosh, that's going to be really bad for you." And the devil said, "Not at all. I'm going to let him organize it." When you have a thought and you believe your thought is the truth, you're so far off the mark it isn't even funny.
God.
When you have a direct experience that you are the extension of the creative energy expressing in form, all of your thoughts become irrelevant. You are not your thoughts about yourself. You are that which can be aware of your thoughts. You are awareness itself. You are consciousness itself. You are a spark of the divine mind and nothing else. Everything else that you believe you are is all made up, and it's all temporary, and it's all going away with the wind when your body falls to dust. So don't sweat it.
So in a sense, we don't know a thing, and we don't need to worry about not knowing a thing.
Well, not only that, but the things that we think we know keep us from experiencing the truth.
One of the tools that I fail in using now, I was practicing it pretty well for many weeks, is Pierre Pradavan's practice of saying, "I love you and I bless you" to every person he comes across. And that is just a tool to open the possibility of letting go of any preconceived notion of the other person and having a direct connection with the person that has no parameters. But I've stopped doing that, but I'm going to add that back in. I mean, God willing. I get these great practices going and then I forget them. But that's another tool, like letting go of judgment. Yeah.
Yeah, it is one of our biggest challenges is to overcome the conditioning of our mind that's been trained to believe that the mind is so important. And that our words and our thoughts and the meanings that we've accumulated for different important. I mean, people have gone to fistfights and wars over the meaning of words. So it's the highest order of silliness, and yet it's what we've been conditioned into. So one of our biggest challenges is to understand that there's a lot more going on here than our conscious logical mind can ever become aware of, which is why so many traditions ask us to meditate and just focus on our awareness of ourselves, our awareness of our breath, our awareness of our thoughts, because that's focusing on our true nature. Me spinning in thought is not my true nature. My true nature is that which can step back and be aware that I'm spinning in thought. Which is why, there have been a number of different spiritual gurus from the East that have as their primary teaching simply asking their students, who are you? Over and over and over again, day after day, the same question with no change.
Yeah.
Who are you? Which is why the Way of Mastery says in the 4th lesson, please, if somebody asks you who you are, don't give them a name. Don't give them, I come from Indiana. I come from Haiti. Don't give them a political label or a gender. Tell them the truth. The next time somebody asks who you are, tell them the truth. I am infinite and eternal. I have never been born and I will never taste death. I shine forth as a sunbeam to the sun. I am the effect of the Creator's love, and I stand before you to love you, to extend that love to you, if you want to use the best regulatory speech we've got from Michael Rice's work.
Well, that's a lovely idea. If somebody said that to me out on a sidewalk somewhere, I would think they were nuts and I'd run screaming. And I can't imagine saying that to anybody else. I think when somebody asks me who I am on the sidewalk, they're expecting parameters, a name, where I live, maybe what I do.
But now, Susan, what you're talking about is practical life in the physical world.
Right.
This is not about practical life in the physical world. This is about recognizing that my practical life in the physical world is a game.
I get it.
It's like a ride at an amusement park.
Right.
It's okay. It's okay for me to play that game.
Okay.
But it's also important for me to understand that there's a deeper truth underlying all of this that I can tap into anytime I choose.
I agree with that, Dr. Tim. But actually going out there and saying that, you're not really suggesting that.
Nobody's telling you to do that. That's
Good.
from the Way of Mastery. How many times in your life do you walk around telling people, I'm reading this book by Yeshua, by Jesus?
Mm-hmm.
You don't.
You don't.
Right? You don't do that.
No.
Why? Because there's no reason for you to do that. That's out there, praying out in public and talking about how great you are. No reason to do that. And yet you can still work with the concepts and the exercises that are given. And you
Absolutely.
can deepen your experience of yourself as something more than just your intellect.
Yep.
And you can observe over and over again how there is, every time there's a negative thought, it's false. And it's from the past.
Yeah.
And there's more going on here than you truly understand. So you can expand that part of you that can learn to live in the comfort of your divine ignorance rather than demanding answers. Learning to live in the question, as Rilke would call us to. So I want to stop us here because we're at the end of our time, and I want to remind people, if you weren't here at the beginning of the show, beginning on Monday, I will be doing this show through Zoom, and all the information you would need to join us will be on the website at mindshiftersacademy.org. There's a separate page for that information, and you can call in on your phone, or you can be on the computer, you can use video or not. And it will be recorded and put out as a podcast, just like this has been. So Michael and Jeannie will be having a podcast on Podbean Monday and Tuesday at a minimum next week because of Jeannie's surgery. Yes, Susan?
Is the link going to be always the same? Or
Yes, it's all set up to be the same and not require a passcode.
Oh, great. Okay, thanks.
So that's why I put it up on the website, on a page, and it'll be that way every day that I'm doing the show.
Good.
So thank you for the call and the comments as always. I'll remind us all that we come from love. We're made of the stuff we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false.